Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of the 49ers Live Mailbag. You know how this works, but for those that are here for the first time, I'm going to lay out the ground rules so that you know what's going on. You know how this thing is playing out. Basically, I send out a tweet in the morning asking for your 49ers mailbag questions. I get a bunch of responses. I have about 10 that I'm going to go through. Those are the previously submitted questions. People also hit me up at 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. Those are the questions that I have prepared answers for. But all of you that are here live, after you've smashed that like button, go ahead and throw in your comments into the chat. Do me a favor and type in @Rob or @RobShoe so that when I'm going through, I know that there are comments directed at me with questions that you have about the 49ers. And I will bounce back and forth between the previously submitted questions and the comment sections. We have those that are here already. Notorious GAV, who did submit a question. I'll be getting to that in just a moment, but coming in to say, I don't know if I'll catch this one live, but I'll 100% catch it tomorrow for show. Smash that like button, sneakerheads. Captain Juice. Yes, Notorious GAV hailing from Wales across the pond. No surprise that you can't make it live there. Swan Song coming in to drop the gold medal. Swan Song sneakerhead here on the channel also has a question in the mailbag coming up. Stunna just coming in to leave some good emojis. Treasure Kisses coming in to say hello. No Way Jose with the first question in the chat here. I saw this one before I logged in. No Way Jose coming in to say, Rob, I don't know if you just heard, but Debo wants out. Verified by Debo's younger brother, Taekwon. Brad just tweeted or posted it on his Instagram 30 minutes ago. No Way Jose, I did see that. I think it's interesting. I'm not taking this as a certainty that Debo is going to request a trade. I think if it came directly from Debo, I would take it as a certainty. When it's a brother of the star, I don't know. I've seen examples. I know it's not likely. It's probably, at least close to the truth, if not the truth, if not exactly how Debo feels. But you never know. I mean, a sibling might put their foot in their mouth. You've seen it happen before with pro athletes. So I'm going to wait and see how this one plays out before I take that as gospel. Steve coming in. Debo's bro made those comments a couple of days ago when he received the threats. I'll only believe this when it actually happens. Still think he's going to be signed. That's about where I am, Steve. That's my mentality of how this is going to play out. But I understand those fans that are thinking to themselves, like 49 Lakers, this isn't good. It makes you feel a little nervous. If you want Debo still on the team, it makes you feel a little nervous. If you want a plethora of picks in return for Deebo Samuel, maybe this gets you excited. Who knows? Stivers 209 football coming in. How's your day today, Rob? It's good. And that's a good lead in for me to actually put in the first question. Although I see Notorious Gav is here, so I got to put it in. Okay, I made it. Hoping my mailbag question makes it. It does, Gav. It is. Hold on. Let me scroll. It is like a halfway through-ish, so you got to wait around a little bit. I know it's late over there in Wales, Gav, but we will get to it. All right, I am getting over to one of the previously submitted questions so that we can tackle some of those. Again, put your questions live into the chat. Chat's that way with the @Rob or @RobShoe. So I know you're talking to me, asking questions of me. Here's the first one. It is not mailbag related, but I appreciated it. Leanne coming in. Leanne, appreciate it. Not Niners mailbag worthy, but how is the recovery going? Leanne is referring to this little beauty right here. Had some surgery last Monday. Got the stitches out yesterday. So first and foremost, Leanne, I want to say thank you for asking, honestly. And thank you to anyone that's reached out. I've gotten a couple people that have reached out and asked how I'm doing, how the recovery is going, how I'm healing. And I believe it's going well. Stitches, like I said, just came out yesterday. These little tension strips that are on there right now, stay on there for a few more days so that, and I'm quoting the doctor here, it doesn't just tear right open. So I'm hoping those little bandages keep that sucker from opening wide up. But so far, seems to be healing really well. I'm getting back most of my movement, although can't lift up that eyebrow quite as high as I used to be able to. I'm sure I'll get it back. Admittedly, just in being candid about it, I am self-conscious about the new look and not that thrilled that it's going to take months to really get back to what I consider to be normal. Now, some of you may be looking at me right now with this tiny little bandage on my face and the bare remnants of a little black eye and saying, well, I don't see anything. But it's my face. And so I look at it in the mirror up close. And, it is one of those things where sometimes you take it a little bit hard when it doesn't look exactly how you would want it to. Thankfully, I never really viewed myself as a model, so to speak. And so it's not quite as devastating to be taken down a peg. But I'm confident that I will be back up and running. I am back up and running. It will just continue to get better and better and better. Again, spoke to the doctor just today. He reminded me that it's a process and that the swelling can't totally go down because there are actually sutures. They took out the stitches that are on the surface, but there are sutures below the surface that then need to dissolve, which is kind of weird, right? The body just sort of absorbs them. Or they come poking through one way or the other. The body either absorbs them or rejects them, one or the other. I'm fascinated to know how that will go. So it can't completely go down. The swelling can't go down for the next 4 to 6 weeks at a bare minimum because those sutures are there beneath the skin. Until then, I will just keep on smiling and you all just keep focused on the voice, right? That's all that matters up in this thing. All right. I got to see the reactions to that. I will get back into the previously submitted questions, ones that are actually 49er related. I promise you that was the only sidetrack in updating you about my physical health. We will keep this thing 49ers related. E. Kim coming in. Hey, Rob, I see Alex Mack being the next Joe Staley. I saw this coming this offseason that Mack was going back and forth on retirement. Yes, E. Kim, I have that question coming up in just a little bit in my notes. And so we will get to that. It is still undecided. Nothing has come out, but I agree. Tending towards believing that Mack may retire at this point seems like a fair assumption. I was on the other side of the camp. Admittedly, I was on the other side of the camp believing Mack would be back. Chris Royal, given the positive encouragement, I appreciate it. Looking good, my guy. Thank you, Chris. And Chris did get in a question that complemented one of the questions that was already in there. And so we are by default answering Chris's submission for the mailbag. M. Ramalho coming in at Rob Shue. Hey, man, say it ain't so that Debo is backing out of contract talks and wants to leave. Again, I am going to wait and see with this one. The sibling of the player, that's a close source. That's a very close source. But he may have said it, in the heat of the moment. He may have been inebriated when you don't know. It was on social media. It was Debo's brother. I agree it's a tea leaf, and it's a tea leaf you have to read. At the same time, I'm waiting to see just a little bit. Joshua, at Rob, I see how Debo has paused his contract extension. What do you think could happen Thursday night? I think if we have not seen a trade by day one of the draft, I think Debo is getting signed. That to me is the cutoff. That's the cutoff. Notorious JV saying, I made it, Rob. I'm up past midnight and drinking Mountain Dew. That is exactly what you need to keep you up, for sure. Raphael 5629ers. What's up, Rob and everyone? Raphael, good to see you. Looking for those questions. All right, E. Kim, Rob, I felt that the Debo situation was coming at some point. Debo wants to get paid, and I can't blame him after taking the beating he did at running back this past season. I can't blame him either. I absolutely believe that Debo deserves to be paid. Raphael thinks that it's a 50-50 shot. I think it's a 50-50 that Debo's in a 49er uniform next year. I'm still leaning towards like a 70-30, but if you had asked me yesterday before knowing that this level of discontent had come out, I would have been more like 90-10. Stivers 209, 49ers need to sign Deebo Samuel, 5 years, $85 million. He may be looking for more than that. BK from the Bay. At Rob, do you think the Panthers will trade for Jimmy? Your thoughts? I actually have that one coming up in the mailbag. I will get to it in just a little bit. Rudy boy with the jokes. They're still doing lobotomies? Yes, and I am still fully functioning after said lobotomy. Thank you, Rudy. Kurt coming in. If a trade is requested by Debo, would the Niners require it occur before the draft? And if it doesn't, they won't acquiesce. That is my stance. If you're letting go of Debo, who was arguably the most important piece of your offense, I mean, almost inarguably the most important piece of your offense, you need something back this season. And therefore, my guess would be the 49ers would only agree to a trade if it brought them back a first rounder this year, in addition to other picks. Gav coming in with question at Rob Shoe. Is Jimmy G killing off our chances to sign Deebo and Bosa? I don't know. I go back and forth on this. Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat has laid out a fairly compelling argument that Debo's contract does require some flexibility. Now, the 49ers could gain that flexibility by extending Jimmy Ward. They could cut Samson Ebukam. There are other ways to bring money onto the books to free up salary cap space. But the most obvious way to do it, trade or cut Jimmy Garoppolo. So yes, I do think that in some way he is absolutely holding that up in some way. Patty Grimes at Rob, don't worry about the look as long as you've got your health. Thank you, Patty. And that is the most important thing. They did cut out the little skin cancer that, was the least sort of the type that you don't worry about. But it still was. That was my first time hearing the frickin' C word. So that was not fun. But they did get it out. The health is good. It is just about the looks at this point. Playboy Chewy coming in. Rob Shoe, what games are you planning to attend next season? I'm almost always there for the Seattle game because it's such a quick jaunt from Portland. And then I'm looking at 4 road games. Chicago, Denver. Oh, what were the other ones? Atlanta and one more. Man, I can't remember what it is. I will get back to you on that one. But there are some good road games happening this year. To me, it is a road schedule that I'm after. All right, I am going to get back over into your comments in just a moment. Just got to celebrate M. Ramalho as the newest member of the Sneakerhead community. Appreciate that. Absolutely. And Rudy, liking the fact that I took the joke square on the chin there. You're the man, Rob. LOL. Appreciate that, and appreciate M. Ramalho coming in as the latest member of the Sneakerhead crew. Let me know if I am mispronouncing your last name. You know I'm sensitive to that with a name like Shu, spelled S-C-H-U-H. All right, I'll be back over into your comments. Comments are over here in order to answer your questions in a moment. Again, the reminder is type in the @Rob before your question so I can see it real easily. I'm going to get to one by Buggin, 420 Savage, and James in just a moment. But I'm getting back over into a previously submitted question here. This one coming in from Benedict B. What will happen if Bosa gets a new deal and becomes the highest paid non-quarterback with lots of guaranteed money, while Debo doesn't have a new deal, if he's still on the roster by then? I think it would be unfortunate, if you ask me. I think in that scenario that you lay out, Debo would no longer be on the roster. I'm getting back to this idea for me that I suspect without a new deal, this thing goes south, and it goes really far south really freaking fast. If the 49ers think that the most likely end result is that they won't be able to reach terms with Debo, then I think they move Debo prior to day one of the draft because they would want a day one pick in return to attempt to fill in for some of that production that you're losing, an immense amount of production that you're losing from Deebo Samuel if you let him go. That, to me, would dictate needing to happen by day one of the draft. I still predict, even after this news by Deebo's brother, I still predict that a deal gets done for both players, Deebo and Bosa, this offseason. But then again, I'm still predicting a Jimmy trade. So maybe you take that with a grain of salt. All right, coming back over into the questions that are live here in the chat. I see James Schaefer coming in. At Rob, if he is actually demanding a trade, what would you take for Debo? I hope he stays, but I mean, you've got to look at the Tyreek Hill deal. I'm pulling up the Tyreek Hill deal right now just to see what that one looked like. of course, it won't give me the easy terms on the number of picks that came back for it. But that's what I want. I mean, I want to get blown away by the number of picks that you get back. You're talking about the 7th most yards from scrimmage by any player in NFL history. Man, I just spit all over my freaking screen there because I was so excited about that fact. It's nuts. All right, so here's what the Chiefs got in return. The Chiefs will get the Dolphins' 1st and 2nd round picks along with their 4th rounder in this year's draft. So they got a 1st, a 2nd, and a 4th. And then they get a 4th and a 6th in next year's draft. So basically a 1st, a 2nd, 2 4ths, and a 6th. One of those 4ths and one of those 6ths is in next year's draft. That's about what I would want. And I would want the 1st and the 2nd in this year's draft because you are going to want to take a wide receiver. You're going to have to replace that freaking production. 420 Savage coming in at Rob Shoe. Should the 49ers draft a center, first pick they have if Mack retires or move up to get a center? One or the other. I actually think they can trade back and still get one of the premier centers available in this one, or at least the ones I have my heart set on. And I have that question coming up in a little bit. 420 Savage, stick around. Check out the answer. Buggin coming in at Rob. If we trade Debo and we get a 1st round pick, any player in the 1st round you have a crush on? Yes, most definitely Christian Watson. I feel like that would be an ideal candidate to both get a wide receiver. It depends where the pick is. But if it's, in the right range, I really do like Christian Watson. Honestly, I haven't scouted the top wide receivers in front of Christian because I did not consider it a possibility that the 49ers would be in play for really any of these. Michael coming in. Hey, Rob, glad you're back and doing great. Appreciate everything you do. Go Niners. Thank you very much. And good to know I got the pronunciation correct. Always, it does. It makes me strangely feel good about that. Treasure Kisses coming in at Rob. Can we please do something with Jimmy? Yes, can we? Please? Please. Waruna at Rob Shoe. I don't hold anything against the 49ers if they can't get Debo trade done. 49ers made Warner, Kittle, Jimmy G at the time best paid players in the position. You can't do that for every position. No, that's true. That's very true. And a very reasonable take, Waruna. I would say for Debo, I make the exception. I get it done. Debo and Nick Bosa, I'm getting both of those deals done. If I'm Paraag, if I am the front office, if I'm John Lynch, it just seems criminal not to. Kim at Rob, at a minimum for a Debo trade, what would you take? I just went with that one, but this one says I would take a 1st and 2 seconds and a young player. I really like that combo, Kim. I agree. It's got to have a 1st and a 2nd, like the Tyreek Hill trade did. It did. Randall Riley coming in just to say Bosa's cool as a cucumber. Allen is concerned at Rob Shoe. What's going on with Alex Mack? That is the question. That's the $1 million question. We don't know. It is unknown. So all we're doing is acknowledging the level of unknown that is here. There's been nothing to indicate, we're closer to a no than a yes. We are just confirming the status of unknown for Alex Mack. And I think that's concerning as we are this close to the draft. People are hearkening back, obviously, to what happened with Joe Staley, where we had no idea he was going to retire. And then news broke in the draft. Joe Staley's retiring, and the 49ers had a course of action. They had a plan in place. It's hard to imagine they have an equal plan in place right now, but we shall see. I've got a question about that coming up, so stick around. Niner Sickness Podcast saying, what's up? Niner Sickness, it's good to see you, and saying hello to the faithful. All right, Dr. Jaspreet Dahar coming in at Rob Shoe. What the hell is going on with Debo and San Francisco? Sucks to see the relationship so sour right now. I think Debo is trying to set the market. SF is lowballing him, but at the same time, he is acting like a diva right now. There is some truth to that, and I understand those people that get frustrated with a player acting in their own self-interest to this degree, to where it does seem to cast a poor light upon the team itself. It does seem to indicate I'm more important than the organization. But we have to appreciate that for these players, there is a very limited window for them to earn this money, in particular at a position like wide receiver, if you're going to be used like a wide back. This is potentially Deebo's only major contract. He is 26 going on 27 at the moment. If he doesn't get the biggest deal possible right now, he'll be north of 30 the next time he's negotiating. I can't imagine those negotiations are going to be any easier on him. So I do have to appreciate where he is coming from and acknowledging it may just be the one chance that he has in getting the bag. And therefore, I'm a little more understanding of him taking a hard position. Treasure Kisses says, Rob, I am going to join the shoe community next month. Hey, welcome to any and all future sneakerheads. I appreciate it. Dr. Jaspreet coming back in at Rob Shoe. Niners could have taken Creed Humphrey last year for center, but didn't. I am not very optimistic about any of the Niners O-line picks in the last few years. O-line is tricky right now. With the Alex Mack uncertainty, let me just say it's the one position group I am admittedly nervous about. All right, I'm getting back over to a previously submitted question right now. If you are here live, go ahead and ask your 49ers related question in the chat. Just start it out with @Rob or @RobShoe so I can find it nice and easy when I get back, because we are talking about the Alex Mack situation right now. Guero came in with this gem. The Alex Mack situation seems to be playing out much like Staley's last offseason. Now, technically, Guero, this is not a question, but a statement, but I treated it as a question and responded as such. So the follow-up question to that, and this is one that I got, was, is there a solid free agent center out there that the 49ers might be after? Yes, there is. J.C. Tretter might be the answer to the 49er faithful's fears right now. J.C. Tretter, go look the man up. Intelligence has long been underscored as a critical attribute for a center. And that's particularly true for a center that operates within a Shanahan offense. Tretter was one of the best centers in the league the last few years. He's one of the best free agents still available out there. Could probably sign him after May 10th, so it doesn't count against a compensatory formula. His intelligence absolutely checks out. He's currently the president of the NFL Players Association. You would think they would elect an intelligent player to said position. I would think. He's 30 years old. He's an 8-year NFL vet. To me, this is tailor-made. If you're in a situation where Mack retires, I think you got to go this route. I say that really enjoying Cole Strange, Cam Jurgens. But if you're going to go year one and thrust someone into this position right away, I'm going to be much happier if it is a tried and tested NFL vet. You can still add one of those players and put them in at one of the guard spots. You know, there are still going to be some great interior offensive linemen available at the 49ers spots at 61 and at 93. I think they will draft an interior offensive lineman either way. But if you lose Mack, I go J.C. Tretter, and I freaking make it happen right away. All right, one more before I get back to your questions in the chat. Do you think the 49ers signing of Toure means that edge won't now be a priority in the draft? Or do you think it will ultimately depend on who's available? I do think that it will depend and that they've sort of insulated themselves. My answer here is both yes and no. I believe the Niners have adequately bandaged, you get that? A little play on words there. They have bandaged all their wounds such that if they fail to draft any particular position, they'd be okay. This is probably least true of offensive line, and it is definitely not true if Alex Mack does retire. If he retires, And you don't go the JC Treader route. If you say to yourself, no, we can't afford the veteran. We've got to draft young at this position. We've got to get younger along the offensive line. In that scenario, you say to me, oh, I don't want JC Treader. I want to draft a player to fill Mac's position. I'm trading back from 61. You may say to yourself, no, Rob, we need to trade forward and grab the guy you really want. The guys that I really want are going to be available there in the early 70s, my belief. So I trade back a few spots from 61 into the early 70s, grab an extra pick, and then draft my future center there in the early 70s. I think you'd have your choice of Cole Strange or Cam Jurgens. And in that scenario, you can't mess around and go best player available. You're going to have to fill a need at that position. You're going to have to fill a need. All right, coming back in to get to your questions and comments live here in the chat. Skylara just coming in to say hello, new here, welcome. Sky full of stars, love it. Welcome in. Alan, love this. At Rob Shoe, pay Debo, hit the like button like Brent Jones hit the end zone. Alan, well played. Well played. Okay, we got Chris Royal coming in with the super chat. Shared your link to our Niner Empire Salem Facebook page, my guy. Hoping to get you some more subscribers. 1 week till the draft. Can't wait. Chris, I can't wait either. I appreciate you sharing that link. I hope anyone that comes on can get a quick taste of the positive vibe that is here on the channel, of the logical debate that I prefer to have when breaking down any particular topic, in attempting to remain reasonable in all of my arguments and takes. That is the way in which I attempt to moderate this channel, keeping it very civil, keeping it as positive as possible, while acknowledging when there needs to be critiques of the team, critiques of the players, and keeping it honest. Our newest sneakerhead coming in, M. Ramalho. At Rob Shoe, I think Debo is worth all the money, but paying Armstead, Warner, Kittle, Debo, and Bosa top contracts is not sustainable. So unless they trade one or two of them, we can't afford all of them. I believe that's true once we get Debo and Bosa under contract. I think that's it as far as top-end contracts. Barring trading one of those players that is currently at the top end of their market, I would agree with you. But I don't think we're there yet. I believe that Debo and Bosa's deals could both still fit underneath our current structure, so long as you're able to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. That $25 million needs to come off the books, no doubt about it. Jeremy Spencer coming in at Rob. Debo, AJ, and Terry all have the same agent. So I think it's his agent trying to get the most for all of them. He's definitely attempting to maximize contracts for every single one of them, and thereby maximize the dollars for himself. He's getting a piece of every single one of these, so it doesn't matter to him who ends up getting paid at the top of the market. But to each one of these players, those bragging rights absolutely do matter. E. Kim, Rob, this O-line is Trent Williams with Mo, Larry, Curley, and Shemp. And I love Shemp. E. Kim, that was well played. That was very well played. Theo Romo coming in at Rob. What trade makes it okay to get rid of Debo? Again, it's anything beyond what you got in the Tyreek Hill trade. So a first, a second, 2 fourths, and 2 sixths, with one of those fourths and one of those sixths coming in the following year's draft. You know, if it's at that level or above, as much as it would pain me to have Debo no longer a 49er, I would consider that a fair trade. I would still be devastated, and I would consider it a pretty fair trade. Sean, 951 Niners in the house. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Sean, trying to make it out to that draft as well. I know, trying to make it work. Uh-oh, old school 415 player making a prediction. Debo's catching the New York Jets. Could be. That seems like one of the destinations if you're talking about a possible trade. And Potato Chips coming in with the potential trade cost at Theo. Romo, Jets, 2 first-round picks. That would be one hell of a return. All right, Dr. Jaspreet coming in. If I were the Panthers, I would hands down want Jimmy to lead my team over Baker. So much more playoff experience, and he is more level-headed than Baker. His decision-making is a bit better, too. I would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than Baker Mayfield as well. I certainly would. And I do think you have to look at the cost for both players, the health for both players. I'm still taking Jimmy, but I get why it is a debate. Treasure Kiss is coming in at Rob. How about we trade Jimmy for a 6th-round pick to the Panthers, then send George and Mike to Detroit for 5th-round picks, then send Greenlaw and Jason to Seattle for a 4th-round pick? That sounds terrible. Terrible. George to Detroit for a 5th-rounder? What's going on here? What is going on here? No, I would not trade George. John coming in at Rob. Would you trade Debo for a Pro Bowl level center if given the chance? No, I would rather have the picks in that particular, because I think you can get a Pro Bowl center. He's available as a free agent in JC Tretter. If you want a Pro Bowl veteran center, go get him. Bullpup 33 at Rob. I would love another pick. What about another tackle? Did you check Danny Gray? Danny Gray is definitely on my radar. Definitely on my radar. Robert Pacheco coming in at Rob Shue. Glad to see you're doing well. Will it be return of the Mac? We need to protect Trey. We need the return of Mac Jones. All right, let's get back into a previously submitted comment, and then we will get back into your comments live here. This is funny. Miguel Shu coming in. Hello, Father. Where have you been? And then people talking about you trolling, bro. Yeah, Miguel is not. I don't have any children. Ironically, though, my father's name is Michael, not Miguel, but Michael. So yes, indeed, that is somewhat ironic. Ooh, I like this just because it has my man Marcus Jones, Niner Sickness Podcast coming in. Marcus Jones is not only the best kick, punt returner in the draft, but also a playmaking all-around cornerback. He picked off 5 passes and broke up 12 others in 2021. Niner Sickness. Yes, I am with you on Marcus Jones. He would be an elite nickel cornerback if he can stay healthy. I know he had the shoulder surgeries. He's a hard tackler. He's a small guy. That's a concern, but kick returner, punt returner, elite nickel coverage skills. I'm telling you. I am telling you. All right, I'm getting back into a previously submitted question. I will be back for your comments in just a moment. Again, hit me with the @Rob and type in your 49ers questions live now. All right, this one is coming in from Philip. Philip W. If Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall are available at 61, do you think Kyle will pull the trigger with either? Or will he go with the sensible positional pick? This is a tough call for me, but I would say yes. He would pull the trigger on that. That's a lot of value falling right there. I do think the 49ers have sort of braced themselves for the most part against having to select a position. Again, if Mack retires, that changes it a little bit. But even so, I think they're more comfortable in their depth than we would be, than we as fans, we as commentators would be. I believe the 49ers are comfortable with their offensive line depth. Even at center, assuming that he doesn't get grabbed by another team, JC Tretter is still available. I've been saying it all show long. He's out there as a free agent, and that could arguably be the better move anyway once you've jettisoned Jimmy's salary. And so, yes, you could be looking at a true best player available. This next one comes in from Swan Song. It's the hypothetical about how we might have hardballed Jerry Rice. He said, Rob, do you think Paraag would have lowballed Jerry Rice after 3 years? He goes on to point out Jerry's stats, 31 total starts. There was a strike year where they only played 12 games. He had 200 receptions, 3,500 plus yards, 44 total touchdowns, 41 receiving, and 3 rushing. And oh, by the way, over that time frame, 0 games missed. So yes, that one is exciting. But the question is, do I think Paraag would have lowballed Jerry Rice after 3 years? My answer to that is, in all honesty, yes, I think he would have lowballed him after that. I think that's the standard negotiation tactic, is to start low. The problem is that for a player such as Debo, he's pouring his heart into what he does. In that season that he had last year, he poured every ounce of his being into that season. It's hard for a player like that to take his emotions out of the negotiation process. But that's what you need to do because it is a negotiation. One party starts low, the other party starts high, and you meet in the middle. And the goal is to not get so offended during the process that you can't meet in the middle. It's all about compromise. So, yeah, I think Paraag would have attempted to sign Jerry for the least amount possible. But just like with Deebo Samuel this offseason, I wholeheartedly believe a deal would get done with Jerry Rice having been lowballed. And I still do believe that a deal will get done with Deebo Samuel. All right, Notorious GAV's question is coming up next. Gav, I got you in a moment, but I'm getting back over to the live questions right now. Emotional Damage on the radio coming in at Rob Shue. What's up? How are you doing? It's good to see you. I'm doing well. Loving a mailbag episode as usual. Getting into your questions right now. And we will definitely be going through those that are in the chat at this moment. Treasure Kisses says, Rob, can we pick up Copper Rush? Sure. Sandra M coming in to say hi. Hello, Sandra. Swan Song in response to lowballing Jerry Rice, which was my answer on his hypothetical coming in. Paraag wouldn't even cut his grandmother a break. I'm telling you, he's a stone cold negotiator. And that's kind of what you want, as long as he doesn't step on a lot of toes in the process. Polly Walnuts coming in at Rob. Debo's brother tweeted that Deebo will ask to be traded. We covered that earlier in the show. I'm taking it as news, but I'm not taking it as gospel. This is his brother. This isn't Deebo. It could have been said in jest. It could have been said while under the influence of whatever. It could have been frustration. If it comes from Deebo, I'm going to add some weight to it. But I still think that this is sides posturing. Oh, we'll ask for a trade. Oh, we're going to lowball him. I still hope that there's room to meet in the middle. Fassy coming in. Debo's brother replied to someone saying, trade him, saying, don't worry, we're requesting a trade. We are requesting a trade. Thoughts? Yeah, that's what I was just getting into. Sorry, I didn't see the super chat and put it up here before. But as I was saying, I take this as news. I'm not discounting it. I want to be very clear about that. I think it's important that we take all these inputs, we receive them as valid news about the situation, and we acknowledge that this thing is, pardon my French here, but a shit show at the moment. It's not pretty. Both sides are acting contentiously. I suppose you could say the 49ers are not publicly acting contentiously, but very clearly they are acting contentiously in negotiations if the end result is the level of offense that Deebo and his camp have taken to this point. That said, it doesn't mean that the sides can't come back together. This could be posturing. This could be both sides drawing hard lines in the sand, and they may still want to come together. It's still best for the 49ers to sign Deebo long-term. It's still best for Deebo to stay with San Francisco long-term. And even if we take this as absolutely true, with truth puts out here, Deebo and his brother are very tight. I do not dispute that. And again, I am definitely accepting this as news. And I still think a deal can get done. Emotional Damage on the radio at Rob Shue. What will Carson Wentz do for Washington? Washington was a team I expected a lot of things from last season, and they disappointed. I'm not a big Carson Wentz believer. I think Washington probably wanted Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they would have been better off with Jimmy Garoppolo. The NFC East is wide open in my book, but I'm not expecting a huge leap from Washington with Carson Wentz at the helm. James Schaefer at Rob, how would you rate 49ers offseason if we can't trade Jimmy, can't re-sign Debo, and Mack retires and can't sign JC Treader? Worst spot. James, this just got dark here. Goodness gracious. How would I rate the 49ers offseason if we can't do any of those things? And so we can't trade Jimmy, can't sign Debo, Mack is gone, can't get JC Treader, gotta draft a rookie, don't have additional picks in order to do it. I would rate it poorly if that were the case. As of right now, I would put the 49ers offseason somewhere around a B-. And that's with the expectation that Jimmy is still going to be traded. Vicky, one of our sneakerheads coming in at Rob Shoe. I would trade Debo to the Jets for 2 first-round picks and draft Drake London, wide receiver, and a defensive end. Isn't Drake London, is he the, hold on. I see. Why am I thinking that Drake? Oh, I'm thinking of the other who is a pass rusher. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of if you're going to take a trade for Deebo Samuel, you have to try to replace that productivity in some way. I would definitely go wide receiver in the first if we got a first rounder. I think you have to almost. But I like best player available within tiers. And so it really gets tough as far as finding yourself in a position where you feel you have to take a particular player. That feels like it happens if Mack retires, and it feels like it happens if you trade Deebo. Either one of those two scenarios would seem to place the 49ers in a position where they can't truly go best player available. Sure, they could, but would it be most beneficial for them? I'm not sure that it would. Art the Collector. Is this Art Vandalay? At Rob, if we trade Debo, for which I disagree, where could we get the most for him? Jets or Texans? I mean, people keep throwing out the Jets because of their first round picks. I do think you look at those teams that have a lot of capital, and the Jets fit the bill. The Texans don't feel like they're in a position yet to do it. So in those two, I would pick the Jets. Thomas Luttrell at Rob, do you think 19 is getting bad advice during negotiations? 49ers might be petty enough to make him play this year out and then tag him 2 times. Front office isn't afraid to make unpopular decisions. I don't know. I get the sense from Debo that he wouldn't step on the field again without a contract. It's just my gut. I know players rarely, ever go the nuclear option. But man, I feel like that's the message he's sending out right now. All right, I'm getting back into the previously submitted questions. This one coming in from the notorious GAV. How much do you rate us bringing back Jauan Jennings? And do you see his productivity on the field improving this season? P.S. Juice for Captain. Hashtag Captain Juice. The notorious GAV is making a mad push for Captain Juice this year. Use check getting the captain badge. I would love it. In answer to your question, bringing Jauan Jennings back, I think this is huge, especially when you look at the rest of the receiving room. Man, we added Ray McCloud and a couple other guys that may not even make the 53-man roster. And Ray McCloud may have some fumbling issues there if we're being honest about it. So yes, to me, this is huge, having Jauan Jennings back. Absolutely essential. An enormous, not acquisition, but an enormous keep by the 49ers. I think he's going to be a huge weapon for Lance. He's a big target. He makes the clutch freaking catches over and over again, and he's physical as hell, which fits right into that run game, the run blocking scheme. So yes, this one was big for me. I'm a big Jauan Jennings fan. I like to say he plays like a grown-ass man. All right, Nuri coming in here with the question about the Panthers. Nuri says, are the Panthers more likely to trade for Jimmy if the 49ers take McCaffrey in return? Rumors say they want to trade McCaffrey for salary cap reasons. Would it be a good trade for the 49ers? I'm going to answer this question with an if-then format. So if-then. I say that because it is a rumor that Carolina may want to trade McCaffrey. We don't have really confirmed reports of that. We don't have Carolina coming out and stating as much. Not that you would expect them to. So if that rumor is true, which I can't prove one way or the other, but if the Panthers do in fact want to trade McCaffrey, then yes, I think the 49ers would be more likely to get a deal done if they'd take McCaffrey back. The question is, should they? It feels to me as if they'd be back up against the salary cap if they did, with a player with a concerning injury history. Yes, he would be a phenomenal addition to the offense. Yes, you can make the argument if the 49ers needed to trade away Deebo Samuel, why not try and bring in another phenomenal offensive weapon like Christian McCaffrey? My argument would be in that if you're going to pay one of the two injury-prone players, why not Deebo? Why not the homegrown product? Why bring in the player from the other team that also has the injury issue? They're both explosive. Both can do things that no one else in the NFL can. I would rather have Deebo in that scenario. All right, getting back into your live comments here. Again, if you want to ask your 49ers mailbag question right now, type in @Rob or @RobShoe. Dr. Jaspreet coming in @RobShoe. Assuming Jimmy is gone, who will we bring in to compete with Nate Sudfeld? A rookie, vet, anyone in mind? I think we definitely need to bring in someone like Trey so the offense has some continuity. That's the issue, is that they are not going to bring in anyone in my book. They paid Nate Sudfeld backup quarterback money. And as soon as they did that, I think it ruled out the 49ers bringing in another quarterback. I believe that Nate Sudfeld will be the backup for Trey Lance. And it comes with positives and negatives. A huge negative if Trey gets hurt and Nate Sudfeld becomes your starter. That sucks. However, if Trey remains healthy, but plays as a second-year player does, which means he has some ups and downs, some growing pains, I'll be glad to have a no-name quarterback behind him. Because if you have someone with a big name, someone with potential, it doesn't take much for the fan base or media pundits to begin calling for that individual, thus adding additional pressure to Trey Lance, who already has enough freaking pressure on him. Emotional damage on the radio @RobShoe. The Panthers could have made the playoffs, but they signed Cam Newton. I can't dispute that one way or the other. They certainly could have made the playoffs. Kim, Rob, Baalke is doing his usual and damaging the 49ers. Not that I blame Christian Kirk for a salary of $18 million a season. Yes, Baalke signing Christian Kirk to that enormous contract sort of did set off all this wide receiver stuff. Baalke is just dead set on getting one over on the 49ers, apparently. Philip coming in here. Philip says, Rob, help for our offensive line. Okay, I'm convinced. Parham has the athleticism, versatility, and football IQ. Trade up for him. If Shanahan takes Parham, he'll probably start him at center anyway. I would be okay with that if you're going to draft somebody to start year one at center. I suppose making the case for one of the best available is a reasonable choice. I can't really dispute it. I haven't done enough due diligence on some of those players earlier in the draft because of my distinct belief the 49ers would not be moving back into the first round. Starco Fan 212, one of the sneakerheads here on the channel, says, Rob Shoe, I would only trade Debo if and only if Kyler leaves the division. I'm interested. Why hinge it on Kyler Murray? That's an interesting one. Bullpup 33 says, Rob, how many times have players gotten the bag and then their productivity goes down? It happens all the time. I mean, Debo was very clearly fighting through injury last season, and I think it's fair to point out he was doing so in order to earn this freaking bag. Potato Chips agrees. Bullpup 33, he says, that happens like 75% of the time in sports. It really does. It really does. Vicky says, Rob Shoe, let's revisit how good Drake London is after his NFL rookie season in 2022. Vicky, I like calling the shot. Drake London, I am now going to need to, with this potential of the Debo situation, I'm going to need to go watch the top wide receivers, which I didn't think I needed to waste my time on, quite frankly. I didn't think there was a chance. And yet here we are. And Vicky's on top of it. Dr. Jaspreet, @Rob Shoe, you think Tart is going to be our safety, or are the Niners looking for someone else to start at the position next year? Petrie, sign looks good too. Petrie's my draft crush. If there's any way to get him, I would like to try. I think Jaquiski Tart, the longer he's out there, the more the chance is that he agrees to come back and the Niners look at bringing him back. But the sources that I've heard, unconfirmed sources, but the sources that I've heard are that on Jaquiski's side of it, that he has been looking elsewhere. But again, if you don't have an option present itself at some point, not to say that you're tucking your tail to come back, but at some point the ego has to get set aside and you have to look at what's the best opportunity for me to play for a year, as he did last year, and potentially set himself up for a bigger contract. Had things gone slightly differently at the end of last season, it could have worked out well for him. He could have earned himself that contract. Unfortunately, it didn't. We all know how that played out. I've got nothing but respect for Jaquiski. James coming in at Rob, not trying to be dark or negative, LOL, but at the beginning, I thought we would trade Jimmy for a third. Me too. Re-sign Deebo and Mack was staying. Me too. But everything is upside down and it frustrates everyone. James, I'm with you. I am with you 100%. I believe Jimmy was going to get traded for a second and a fourth. Oh, I was wrong. I was wrong. Let me say that definitively. So, James, I'm right there with you. I thought this was going to play out, and it hasn't yet, but the offseason isn't over. Art the Collector says, Rob, no, I'm Art from Oakland, a true Bay Area sports fan and a diehard Niners fan. Art, that was simply a Seinfeld reference. Art Vandelay. If you're familiar with Seinfeld, I'm sure you got it right away, but if you're not, it probably did not ring true. But Art, it is a pleasure to meet you. Always enjoy diehard Niner fans dropping in. Felipe coming in at Rob. Do you think the Niners are dropping the ball with the Debo situation? Like that you're staying positive about the Debo situation? I agree with your take. Thank you, Felipe. To me, it is very contentious right now. Yes, I think that's unfortunate. You don't want to let emotions get involved in negotiations because then you can do something illogical. Debo, if he is highly emotional, if this is truly his state right now and he's not just posturing, if he is truly offended by the 49ers, he may do something irrational. He may decide to leave a team that presents him with his best opportunity for success. He may decide to chase a few extra dollars, some slightly different terms, because he's taken offense to the way this has played out, because he values himself in a certain way and he feels the 49ers no longer do. That would be unfortunate, but it might happen. I have to admit, it is a distinct possibility, and the more negative stuff that comes out, the more likely it would seem. But I do believe it still can all be repaired. And at the end of the day, they will shake hands. Debo will hate Paraag, but he doesn't have to see Paraag on as regular of a basis. He can just go back to chilling with Shanahan in his office. Edgardo coming in at Rob. The draft is coming up. Do you live stream during it? I will be at the draft, and yes, I will be attempting to live stream for sure from the draft from Vegas. Ekim with a little bit of insight. Rob, one running back I'd look at in the later rounds is Jarian Ealy from Ole Miss. Mark it down. Luke Walsh coming in at Rob Shoe. Are the 49ers heavily scouting first-round prospects? That would be a clue as to any potential trades Lynch might be sitting on. They have scouted some. I don't think you could say heavy. But there have been some where you say to yourself, there's no way the Niners have a chance of drafting that individual. Maybe. Bryant Culp at Rob. Christian McCaffrey would be a perfect fit in Kyle's offense. He would, but so is Deebo Samuel. And I agree with Buggin here. Injury prone, bro. I mean, you could argue the same thing about Deebo, right? And people do when they talk about this contract. But when you talk about Christian McCaffrey, you certainly have to acknowledge as much. I would rather go with the devil that you know, right? The one that you have in the building. And I'm not obviously not calling Debo in any way a devil. I'm a big Debo fan. It's just a saying that I used that seemed in poor taste after I said it. So I felt that I needed to explain myself. Preston Reynolds coming in at Rob Shoe. Coming from a Baylor student, Petrie would be my dream scenario. Yours and mine both. I watched him run at the combine, and I do believe it was because he ran right next to Leon Jr., and he was tight in the hips and didn't turn quite as well, wasn't as fluid. But in watching those two run drills right one after the other, it was night and day. Patty Grimes at Rob, what would Tampa have to give up to get Debo? Don't give Debo to Tom Brady. If you give Debo to Tom Brady, I will not forgive. I will not forgive that. That would be tough. That would be real tough. All right, I'm getting back over into the previously submitted questions. I have just a couple more of those. So if you have a live question, put it in right now. And just as Patty Grimes did, hit the @Rob before your question. This one, a quick one. We're doing 2 in a row here. This quick one comes in from Mike F. Do you think the Niners trade Dre Greenlaw? I do still think that's a strong possibility. Here's the way I would break it down. If they're going to, I would suspect they do it during the draft. It's better to get a pick this year, because if not, why not have, one of the deepest linebacker rooms in the NFL and then just wait for the compensatory pick that you're going to get when Dre Greenlaw leaves? This is the last year of his contract. If you're not going to sign him long-term, you're going to let him leave at the end of this year. You're going to get the compensatory pick the following year. So if you want to speed that up, you trade him this year, you would want the draft pick in this year's draft, even though the compensatory pick would actually be in 2024 because he would end the season next year, and then the draft pick in compensatory measures would be the year following. But you'd still be pushing it off. So I think if you're attempting to get something for Greenlaw, you're attempting to get it in this draft. The logic is a draft pick this year is what they'd be after. Otherwise, the value of having him on the roster seems to exceed the value of the trade. So again, much like Debo, I think if he's on the roster past the draft, he's staying. Same is true for me with Debo and Dre Greenlaw. Just a guess, an educated guess. All right, Everett Days coming in here. Ev asked, please discuss a hypothetical scenario where Colin Kaepernick is brought in to back up Trey Lance. How would that impact the offense, and would you ever see them on the field together? This one was tricky, very, very tricky. This would be, to me, a blend. It would be wonderful, and it would be a disaster at the same time. And it would only be a disaster because of us, because of the fan base, because I don't want to say we're bad people, but some of us are. Let's be very clear about that. There are bad people out there in the world. I don't count myself as one of them. I attempt to do everything I can to be on the good side of things. And I hope that those watching also push themselves to be better people and not to take on those character defects that might play into this scenario. So let me say why it would be wonderful. Number one, Colin Kaepernick deserves a job in the NFL. He always did, in my book, and it's a shame that he didn't get one. I'm not exactly sure what he's got left in the tank right now, but I am pretty confident that it's equal to or better than some of the dudes out there holding clipboards right now at the moment. I'm looking at Nate Studfeld. I don't think the Niners would trade one for the other, but when I look at talent, if Colin had the opportunity to learn the system and be in Nate Sudfeld's shoes, I think you would argue he'd be a more explosive backup. I am admittedly confused with the fact that the 49ers have invested in a backup that isn't a mobile quarterback. After the whole realization by Kyle Shanahan last offseason that it's harder than you think to go back and forth between a quarterback that's mobile and one that's a statue. Can you imagine Colin Kaepernick and Trey Lance on the field at the same time? It feels like a defense would have no idea how to cover that versatility. But it would also be terrible. It would be terrible because of the drama. And the drama, I don't blame Cap for. I don't. I think he took a hardline stance. I think he knew the consequences to some degree. I don't think anyone could have known the full consequences of what he did. But I'm willing to bet that he is a principled enough man that if he had it to do all over again, he would probably make the same decision. I don't want to speak for him. Maybe he's answered that question somewhere. But I think you can, when you take a stance like that, you can lay your head down on the pillow at night. When you're principled, that matters. Like money, does it matter? I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't think it does, not as much as people believe it does, but that depends. If you're hard up, if you're up against a situation where money makes your life easier, then yes, money is important. But when you get beyond a certain point and money just adds to the number of jets that you can take out to Vegas or vacations you could take in Italy, France, Japan, wherever you want to go, the number of 5-star resorts that you can stay at, is it really important then, or do principles matter? When you're on your deathbed, are you really going to look at your bank account? I don't think you are. I think you're probably going to look back at the things you did in life that had meaning, the way you treated people, those ones around you that you love. So all that to say that I'm in support of him making the choices that he did. But if he came back and he were the backup, the drama would be unbearable. Admittedly, I don't like drama. I don't like covering it. I don't like the I'm on one team, you're on the other, now let's yell at each other type of thing that tends to happen there. And that's the unfortunate result. So because of that, I don't think the 49ers could or would ever entertain the idea. But I like the hypothetical, Ev. I absolutely like the hypothetical. All right, I'm getting back into the comments. Don't crucify me for anything I just said there. I realize I could have just ruffled some feathers, but that was just me attempting to speak truth to that frickin' question. All right, Swan coming in at Rob Shu. If Jimmy is on the team week 1 and Debo is traded, does someone get fired? They should. Honestly, someone probably should in that frickin' scenario. Alan coming in at Rob Shu. I'm with you. The whole Jimmy thing. Rolling my eyes, I'm telling you. All right, 420 Savage at Rob Shu. I like Odom to start at strong safety. I think he can get some interceptions. He might be good enough to play single high safety and drop Ward into man coverage sometimes. Your thoughts on Odom? I have heard good things, and anything I have seen has actually been more of leaning towards strengths as a box safety. His tackling in the box is phenomenal. I would not be excited about starting Odom at strong safety. But again, I do believe the Niners have insulated themselves at that position. It would not be the end of the world to me if they started Odom or they had a competition at that spot. I think they do have some depth and someone could rise to the occasion. Rye3211 says, at Rob Shu, Debo has had issues with drops. Do you think he's going to have an issue with Trey's passes? Maybe. Why he's pushing so hard for a contract. Value will go down in 2023 if that's the case. I think he's pushing for that contract because he doesn't want to step foot on the field with the risk of getting injured again. That's very real. The dude's looking at maybe just one chance to get this big contract. And if he gets injured, man, that could be it. That could be it for him. Looking for those comments. Here we go. Art the Collector at Rob. Do you think we need to draft a quarterback? It could be a cheap alternative. I think we have the quarterbacks that we need on the roster. We got Nate Sudfeld as the backup. Trey Lance is the starter. Jimmy G is trade bait. Edgardo Rodriguez at Rob. I'm waiting on the Niners to sign Debo so I can finally buy his jersey. You and me both. I want one of those in the throwbacks. Stivers 209, Rob Shu, let's go NFL draft in Las Vegas, Nevada 2022. I will be there. I fly out, in 8 days. William Bennett in the house. William Bennett, sneakerhead here on the channel. Hey, Rob, how are you? I'm doing well, William. Thank you for asking. I'm on the mend. I'm feeling good. I'm excited about the draft, my friend. I hope you are too. Steven Duarte at Rob. Could I get a shout out to my brother who I'll be watching at the University of Oregon spring game next weekend, playing center. Also hoping to see Armstead there and get the inside scoop on the Niners. Steven, you are in my neck of the woods. I'm telling you, I'm up in Portland. I may have to go down to the game. I mean, you have just inspired me. That's, it's a good place to be. We got a reminder that Debo's brother tweeted that he'll no longer be a Niner. He actually tweeted that they might request a trade, but I'm just not sure that that's certain info, that's concrete info telling us definitively that they're going to request a trade. I think it definitively illustrates how frustrated Debo's camp is. Felipe Colon with the I'd rather keep Debo, but comment. At Rob, I'd rather keep Debo, but if we have to, I'd take for DJ Moore, Jimmy. Okay, Debo for DJ Moore, Jimmy for Christian McCaffrey, and a second rounder and try to draft Watson. What do you think? That's not the end of the world. I mean, I don't like the idea of bringing in a huge salary on an injury concern player like Christian McCaffrey. Again, in that particular instance, I would much rather just pay Debo. That seems to me to be the more logical approach there. But I get that may have soured at this point. Melvin coming in at Rob, just dropped in. If Mack retires and we can't trade Jimmy and Debo seriously wants to trade, it's going to be a long, ugly season. I don't know about that. This is a deep team. I know we get worried, and rightfully so. That it would be a disaster. And even in that case, even in the disaster case, I think we would be competitive. I really do think we would be competitive. We are a deep team. And if Trey Lance is as good as the Niners hope and as good as I hope, that could overcome quite a bit. Kim coming in. Rob, problem with this front office is that they don't adopt the philosophy of what would Bill Walsh and Eddie DeBartolo do. That's fair. And times have changed, right? Eddie DeBartolo would have just paid because there was no salary cap. And when they got to 94, we felt that crunch afterwards. Lycan, 4'6", 4'7". Which line needs the most help? O-line or D-line? No doubt O-line. No doubt. The D-line and the linebacker room, to me, are the two deepest rooms in the frickin' on the team. That would change substantially if for some reason the 49ers could not or chose not to bring back Nick Bosa. That would be a disaster. And then I wouldn't shift my answer, but the D-line would move from a strength of the team to a concern, and you would need an edge rusher. Right now, I think the 49ers want an edge rusher in this draft. They want it because it's a deep edge class, a lot of talent there. They could still get someone who can make an impact in the third round, potentially, maybe even the fourth round. But if you let Bosa go, that changes it. O-line still would be the big need for me, but D-line would raise substantially in that one. All right, I'm getting the last previously submitted question here from Kim coming in. Kim with the email to 49ers Mailbag at gmail.com. Why does the front office appear that they want to pay Jimmy $27 million, but not Debo? That is the current reality to me. That is the current reality that exists. It's what is. Jimmy's still on the team. Debo is pissed. But to me, it does not mean that that's what the front office actually wants to do. It is the reality, but it's not their preference, if that makes sense. They would love to jettison Jimmy Garoppolo, and they will at some point. Jimmy Garoppolo, this is opinion, this is not fact. Jimmy Garoppolo will not be on the 49ers roster come week 1. That is my stance. It has always been my stance. It remains my stance right now. I think they'd love to pay Debo. If you listen to Adam Schefter today, he's indicating the 49ers would pay Debo right now. The 49ers are willing to pay Debo the money. It is Debo who is currently a bit upset. He feels that he is due more money, more guaranteed, more average per year. I think the 49ers would love to pay Debo, and I still believe that they will at some point. I may be in the minority at this point, believing that, but I truly believe it. I think the Debo deal gets done. I think the Bosa deal gets done. And I think Jimmy is not on the roster week 1. All right, we're closing out on your comments here in the chat. This is your last chance. If you're sitting there and you're like, what do I need to do? First, what you should do, hit the like button. Hit the freaking like button because this has been a great show. And then afterwards, put in your last question with an @Rob at the beginning so that I know. Art the Collector says @Rob did a mock draft and was able to trade Jimmy for Carolina's 137th pick. Think it's possible? That would be what? Their end of the fourth round, their compensatory fourth round pick? I think so. I truly do. here's my stance on Jimmy. At some point, if you're the other team where you're trying to sell this to your fan base, you're trying to sell this to the veterans on your squad that you're bringing in a capable quarterback, you almost want to give just a little bit more in trade compensation than the current situation dictates. Because the less you give for Jimmy Garoppolo in the trade, the less faith your locker room and your fan base is going to have that he's truly a savior, that he is in any way an upgrade. If you pay a little bit more for him, it's like, okay, we're bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo. He's been to two NFC championship games, one Super Bowl. He's a locker room guy. You can start to sell it a little bit more. I'll keep my fingers crossed. That does seem reasonable to me. Alan, at Rob Shue, I also want to get the Debo jersey. I'm telling you, 420 Savage wants Debo and Bosa jerseys. Bryant Culp wants a Robbie Gold jersey. That one may be a little short-lived, Bryant. That may be short-lived. All right, looking for the 49ers experience coming in at Rob. Hashtag Vegas born, hashtag 49ers raised, hashtag Arkansas pride. Welcome. Are you going to be at the draft, the 49ers experience? I am flying out there, looking forward to it. I really am. Going to be some great restaurants. I love Vegas. Good food, get to play cards, gamble a little bit. That's going to be a good time. That is going to be a good time. Bryant, at Rob, I want a Ross Dwelly jersey, 82 on the front, 02 on the back, like in the playoffs against the Packers. Did you see that blooper? I did. I think it just got stuck together. I think it still was an 82, but I think it got stuck together. Leaving, at Rob Shue, could get a great edge prospect with pick number 4. Yeah, with pick number 4, oh yeah, you could. Philip, at Rob Shue, how I learned to stop worrying and love the Jimmy G QB2. Oh, that would not sit well with me, admittedly. Chris Royal saying, Rob Shue, what's the best way to reach out to you for our meetup in Vegas? Hopefully, Sean951 will make it there as well. Yes, indeed. Chris, hit me up at 49ers Mailbag at gmail.com. 49ers Mailbag at gmail.com. Looking forward to it, Chris. All right, Alan coming in at Rob Shue. I think Debo gets his money. I do too. John Perez coming in. I don't know, Rob. Why am I not stressing this whole Debo thing like most? I guess I put no stock in panic and rumors. Cheers to you. John Perez, I think that is very reasonable. I do think that there is some evidence to consider. I think that evidence indicates that Debo and his camp are currently unhappy, and that doesn't change my mind that he will sign a deal with San Francisco, that they will be able to get the deal done, and he'll be able to put all this behind him and just take out his anger on Paraag or some of the other front office guys. Starco Fan 212 at Rob Shue, like and subscribe, or I will send the Easter Bunny to attack you. Chris Royal also doing the good deed. Smash that like button, y'all. Brian Culp at Rob, want to make a bet? LOL. A Subway sandwich on it. Jimmy G is on the Niners week 1. Brian, I for whatever reason, I don't want to mess with YouTube making a wager online. So let's make it a gentleman's wager. Bryant, right here and now, I am saying that Jimmy G will not be on the roster. You are, it would seem, stating that he will be. This is a gentleman's wager. There's nothing on the line except for our pride and having to admit that we were wrong. I will gladly admit that I was wrong if Jimmy Garoppolo is on the 49ers roster after week 1. And Bryant, I extend the invitation for you to come on in the comments section and gloat if you're correct, or be, gracious winner if you're correct, or to admit that you are wrong on that one as well. We'll do that on one of the first shows after week 1. Andrew Hoax at Rob, who's the odd man out if the 49ers draft your 6'7" tight end or another one? I got to think Ross Dwelly. He seemed to have fallen behind Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner seems to be the preferred blocking tight end. You could argue, though, maybe that Jelani Woods comes in and could be that blocking tight end. I don't think we need to worry about it. Jelani Woods is going to be long gone. His draft stock is climbing. Starco Fan 212 at Rob Shue. Do you think Jimmy G could save, is that Darnold's career? Sam Darnold's? I'm not sure how he would. I'm not following you there. I'm not following you. AJB saying this. Lowell Cone says Jimmy won't be on the roster by the start of the season. I believe him. Hey, if you're going to believe me or Lowell, either one is good. Lowell's probably a little more credible than I am, so I don't fault you. Joseph Manna coming in at Rob Shoe. I don't have a question. Go Niners. Sign Debo. Sign Bosa. I love it. I love it. E. Kim. Rob, can you work a trade for Eddie DeBartolo for Jed York? I will certainly try. E. Kim. The 49ers experience a sneakerhead here on the channel as well at Rob. I wish I could be there. Be one hell of an experience. That's too bad, but hey, I'm sure you can make it to one of the others in the future when it's an away ceremony. That could be more fun anyway. Chris Royal at Rob Shoe. I have my black and red residency hat in transit, hoping it's here for the call-in show. Me too, Chris. Can't wait to see it, bud. Starco Fan 212 at Rob Shoe. Trading Jimmy G would be the easier if you had Bill O'Brien. We could have traded him for Jamba Juice for everyone in the Niners team and in this chat room. Jimmy Garoppolo, the surgery threw everything off, but he's still a Niner. The 49ers experience, I'll live it through your eyes, Rob, LOL. Yes, I will be broadcasting from the draft, no doubt. No doubt. All right, a couple more here. We got Philip just coming in with the movie reference, Dr. Strangelove. That was my father's favorite comedy. Favorite, right ahead of Airplane. AJB, draft that like button, y'all. Appreciate it. James coming in at Rob. Jimmy, if Panthers don't trade for Jimmy, do you think the only option is cutting him? Yes, and I do think they will consider cutting him if need be. Mike Pelton coming in at Rob Shoe. I'm the same age as you and went through Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and Roger Craig getting traded, and that seemed traumatic as a kid. How did you feel about it? Very traumatic. The Joe Montana trade in particular devastated me. When Eddie DeBartolo came out and basically said, Joe, if you want to stay and be the starting quarterback, I will make it so. I couldn't believe that didn't end up happening. I'm telling you. Vicky still pushing Drake London. Lee Vang coming in at Rob Shoe. Have to admire your positivity. Good show. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Stivers 209 wants the barbecue sauce. You want it, you got it. You want to see the DJ Jones barbecue sauce? There it is. You know it's hiding in the wings here. This is a phenomenal show. It was a phenomenal show. I will be back on tomorrow night, so set your calendars. I'll be on at 5 p.m. with Random McMahon right here back on the channel. Between Two Beards is the name of the show, and we will get down on these 49ers topics. I'm very excited for the draft next week. Going to be content coming out regularly. I'm healing up, feeling good. I appreciate all of you that reached out and all of the well wishes. Honestly, meant a great deal to me. Thank you very much. Until the next time, cheers, faithful.